Welcome back, everybody, to Thrive in Your Body with Homeopathy podcast. I am so excited to have you here and introduce our new guest. And I'm very much looking forward to our conversation. We're going to talk about homeopathy, of course, and many other things, and also about healing trauma. So, this is something I've been looking forward very much. And let me introduce you to our wonderful guest today. Her name is Lakshmi Subramanian. So, Lakshmi, with 20 years of experience as a dedicated homeopath, she brings a lifelong immersion in homeopathic principles, having been raised by a homeopathic family with her mother as a guiding influence in her field. So, this is so wonderful to talk with a generational homeopath who actually was raised on homeopathy. This is such a unique opportunity. So I'm very excited about it. So Lakshmi specializes in trauma recovery, and she combines time-honored homeopathic methods with holistic approaches to help clients heal from physical, mental, and emotional challenges, fostering profound and lasting well-being. During her career, she treated children's acute conditions, allergies, and women's health conditions such as hormonal imbalances, thyroid disorders, recurrent UTIs, and menstrual disorders. But over the few years recently, her practice has seen an influx of children with symptoms related to autism, PANS and PANDAS, as well as ADHD and tantrums and sensory processing disorders. Lakshmi is constantly upgrading her training in homeopathy and also functional pathology and nutrition to better support her clients. She's planning to create online courses, and she also has expanded her education, studying with really wonderful mentors such as Tom Jensen, Angelica Lenke, Giovanna Franklin, and many other experts. So Lakshmi is going to be a wonderful person to talk about homeopathy with all her expertise. Let me introduce her to the stage. Welcome, Lakshmi. So wonderful to see you today.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you, Monica. So wonderful to be here. And thank you for creating this wonderful space where we can talk more about homeopathy and all the wonderful audience that are listening to us or seeing us live. Like, thank you for having interest in homeopathy and looking at how this can help you. So I'm like so excited, and thank you for inviting me here, and thank you all for giving your time listening to us.
Yes, thank you indeed. And so, I introduced you a little bit without with your biography, but I would love to hear more about how did you enter that field of homeopathy? I know your mom was a homeopath, so this was something you were familiar with for your entire life. But what made you actually become a homeopath yourself?
That's correct. Like coming up, like from a strong homeopathic family, I would say like it was a long, long time. I actually knew there was like something called as normal medicine because we had never seen that in our house. We have never seen painkillers or antibiotics or none of those things. So I have never had that in childhood at all. And coming from a place like it is about coming into that year 12, and it's like, what are you going to do in life after this? And my dad, he has a lot of spiritual influence on me, and he was the one like, hey, like we have this generational knowledge. Like my older brother chose to become an engineer, and in India it is pretty much like, are you going to be a doctor, engineer, accountant? And somehow it just happened. Dad said like, this would be good that if we have this knowledge, and I know that having this knowledge has kept ourselves so much independent. And that's why I was like, okay, I'll study homeopathy because I have kind of lived with it. And it's only when you like come out of that you really realize like how profound it has been in your whole life, and how much you've kind of just absorbed, just like that sponge, just being in that environment. And that's what I found out, like, not in India, but when I moved to Australia and when I had to run this whole thing by myself and then look after kids, and having my kids now just being brought up only with homeopathy, And my son, who is 17, he knows pretty much quite a lot of acutes, and he knows to self prescribe, and how this knowledge just goes, and you just like make them independent in this world, to look after their own health, because that's what the thing is. I feel, even having mom as a homeopath, because we always had to touch in deep to speak about our symptoms. Like, what exactly is going on? Can you describe your symptoms? Like, can you speak about it more? So, with when we go to doctors, we know that it's I have a cold, and that's the end of it. Okay, and maybe a headache. But for us to be in that touch with our sensations and what's happening, I think that kind of, I would say, got me like into a place of being connected to the body more. And Yeah, like it just happened organically. If I come back to your question again, what made me want to go to homeopathy, it just happened that. But I would say through time, that's when I realized like the whole essence of it and embodying it. Like as a teenager, like we are pretty young when we finish year 12 in India. I was only 16 years old when we finished VCE. And yeah, you just like go into what you think is the next most aligned thing, and work it from there. But when I see and think about it, like so much later in life, I can see how much of a it's just like been like a part of me for so long that life would feel a lot different if I didn't have it.
Yes, yeah, it's such an integral part of your life and just your thinking. I feel like, everything that, because homeopathy is such a broad field where we really learn how to look at reality, look at human beings, look at ourselves, look at nature, animals, plants in a very different way. I feel like it's such a wonderful way of being. So it seems like you've just been seeped in that for your entire life. And I have to say, I'm almost jealous about that. I wish I didn't have to go to all those doctors when I was a child, but yeah.
And that's where I come from a view that life, for parents who are younger parents who are working with children and family, like life doesn't have to be that struggle, and you can have this as your first resource to go to. And I would say also now, with the age of social media and people like learning a lot of things, and even Dr. Google and having all that, like if we go back just at the end of or the early 2000s, when there was not so much information there online, it was a little bit hard, where people had to like depend on practitioners to help you through stuff. And now a lot of people are learning about homeopathy and using that as the first line to address whatever that they can with what resources that they have, and then they come into you for complex cases, because they have experienced firsthand how wonderful it has been. And also people are now more of that, they're coming that, oh, I have had too many antibiotics. They understand the long term effects of taking too many antibiotics or being on long term medications, and how that impacts their health. And having that insight, they are able to make better choices and have better decisions. I think that's what has helped people look into alternative things. It's thanks to social media, thanks to people like you who do podcasts, who speak about homeopathy so much, so that these resources are available for people when they are looking for guidance of the next steps.
Yes, well, yeah, this is exactly why we're doing that. And to know that there's so many resources out there for you, guys. When you're listening, you don't have to just be dependent on regular medicine. There's so much more out there. It's a beautiful world of healing. And today, I wanted to speak about trauma and homeopathy. I know this is a big interest of yours and a field of work that you are working in. And so let's start about, how does trauma actually relate to homeopathy? How homeopathy can actually heal trauma? Is that possible?
Let me have that question and split that into a few different parts, because there are a few things that we need to know about homeopathic prescription itself, and then how trauma comes into play, and how we help trauma recovery with homeopathy. Firstly, for again in homeopathy, there are two ways of prescription. One is like looking at an acute. So we just take with what's happened. It's something very recent. It just happened. It came like very rapidly, and it's just been like a week or 2 weeks. Okay, so we look at acute prescriptions, and we are going to let that aside. Like, yes, there is acute trauma as well. Like if you've just come out of an accident, or that has been just so your family member who's gone through a lot, and you're just like they've passed away and you're grieving through that. So we look at acute trauma with a different lens, so that we just support them and meet them where they are at this time. And there are remedies for that depending again on their symptoms. So what I spoke about is homeopathy looks a lot at sensations and symptoms that you're experiencing. So headache is not just a headache for us. We are like, where in the head do you feel? Is it at the occiput? Is it the front? Is it the right? Is it the left? What type of sensation do you have? Is it heaviness? Is it sharp pain? Is it throbbing pain? So there is a lot more details that we need first to get like a remedy picture, and understanding how materia medica is where we look for all the remedy matches, and what these plants or minerals or animal remedies have expressed themselves during approving. So one is understanding that there is a whole separate section of remedies on one side, and there is a whole separate human being expressing these symptoms at one side. And as a practitioner, we are just kind of like uniting these two to find a match. Okay, and that's where we are bringing them together, and that's our work as a practitioner, where we are just being like how Hahnemann said in his organon, that unprejudiced observer. We are just taking in everything, and as time goes, as a practitioner, you know that like we are just not hearing them, we're just taking everything. I have a like a whole body experience. I even take into account when a client walks in, what was the first energy or what I felt about that, just and put that to the side, with what thing. And I'm not overthinking or processing. It's just something that came into being. And again, for trauma, and again in homeopathic case taking, if I have to go for chronic, so one is the acute, we just deal with what's there and then. But when we come to chronic, most people come to us with some kind of problem or pain. Okay, they're coming to us with either chronic joint pains or allergies, or like low immune system, or sometimes it's like this is something autoimmune and I've been just diagnosed with something like that, or it's a thyroid problem, or it could be have any of these diagnoses given by the doctors, and they are like, okay, I need help with this problem. So in chronic case taking, we not only look at what symptoms that they are presenting currently, but we kind of need to know a lot more about them. So we are kind of like gauging what's happened through their whole timeline. So we go in to look at like how was their mother's pregnancy with them, are they, what baby number are they in their family downline, how was mom's pregnancy, how are her emotions through that, and what happened after that when you were growing up, how are your emotions then through childhood, through school, through uni, and wherever they are. So we go right from preconception, conception, all the way to where they are now, because there is an organic evolution of what's happened. And I believe that most of the time, yes, people would say you're aging, there is wear and tear and all those other things that's happening. I believe like the body is in pain because it is asking you to pay attention to something that you have ignored for some time. Okay, and it is showing you a way through symptoms to actually bring connection back. So when you're in a lot of pain, you pretty much have no choice but to connect to that body. The more you are disconnecting, it comes up with more I would say pain strength, or like the intensity, kind of like pay attention to me. You have not paid attention. And it is about then giving it that focus, and then looking through where we haven't dealt with thing or what's unprocessed. So again, that's where we come to trauma. And I love Gabor Mate. He speaks a lot about trauma as a psychologist. um, and he speaks about trauma is not the event, it's the unprocessed emotions attached to that event. And trauma is also not about something that happened, it's also about the things that you wanted to happen but didn't happen. So as a practitioner, that's what we are looking for. Yes, there have been adults that I've had, like, who had a very traumatic childhood with abuse. There has been physical abuse and other things that have happened, but I have a lot of clients who come with a childhood where they felt they were absolutely not loved. Nobody cared for them in their family. They were children should only be like whatever, not heard, and they are just there, standing in the corner, whatever. Mom and dad with their dynamics, they were never allowed to speak up, never shown love. They just had to follow the rules, they just had to obey. And if something's not done, then there is like higher consequences, but there is never a giving of love. So there is this, and that's what Gaba Mata is like. You want that connection with your parent, your mother, father, sibling, in your growing up stage. And now there is a lot of information also about trauma, and how most of it happens in the imprinting years, what is called as the 0 to 7 years. Okay, where the children are just like a sponge, and their unconscious mind is taking on a lot of these things that's happening around. And that's why with homeopathy we are really interested in what's happening with mom, because many times we do come up with things like mom was in a very abusive relationship, and they didn't know how to get out of it. And she was crying all the time. There was a lot of sadness, grief, depression that mom was experiencing. So all these things allow us to give a clue to what the remedy match would be for this client. So we take into account not only that, but also what symptoms they are experiencing now and how are they expressing it. And if I may add here, in homeopathy, again, there are many, many styles of prescribing. But I do love in these cases to look at a little bit on the sensation methods, or even Jan Scholten, where he speaks about the collective of how each group of remedies speak, how they express, and we are going into the collective expression across the periodic table, or even the plant tables, with what happens, and they are stuck in that trauma phase. So they have a different type of language that they speak. So taking all those things into account, so that's where a little bit like we as a practitioner are like, here you've got the remedy, here you've got the client here, and we are like in this kind of melting pot, like taking all these things and finding that match that's going to help the client move through this layer, and come to the next thing. And that's where healing is also an organic process. Sometimes there are layers that are present, and we hit that layer with a remedy, and then it opens up something more deeper that they are able to speak about, and takes us to the next layer for healing that brings us pretty organically, and we are just like looking there, helping them through this process. Yeah.
Yes, that's beautiful. And I want to just trace back a little bit to talk a bit more about trauma before we get into talking more about homeopathy, because we do have physical trauma. We also have psychological, mental, or spiritual trauma. And
That's
is there a difference when we are, from a point of view of a homeopath, is there a difference?
it
Or is
again
it
depends.
trauma?
It again depends on what the client is presenting with. Are they coming with a physical complaint or a problem, which the root cause is in the emotional, mental, spiritual plane? Okay. Or they are already just like what Hanuman calls one sided, there everything is in the emotional thing. So they are coming in for only symptoms of anxiety. They are coming with symptoms of all mental emotional problems, because that is something that we have seen, that in today's day and age there are a lot of people expressing symptoms of anxiety for everything. And normal life becomes so burdensome for them that even the slightest thing triggers an anxiety for them. So again, it all depends on what they are coming with. So even physical symptoms that are there can have like the root cause in that mental emotional plane, or the trauma of that childhood, whatever that they are processing or unprocessed, that's not happened through. Or it could be that they are just coming in for an emotional complaint, like they are like in so much grief, or they are in like so much sadness, and they are and their energy is down, because that's what, if they have to give you something physical, they'll most likely say, I have no energy for anything, and they want energy.
Right. But I would imagine that, as you unravel the case and you speak with the patient and they getting on the path of healing, then other things get discovered. If somebody comes with anxiety, there may be many, many different things that actually get revealed. And the
That's
anxiety was sort of like a lid on everything.
correct. Correct.
Mhm.
And that's why anxiety is actually more of a behavior or a symptom. Okay, and there is more other emotions, or even I would say beliefs and other things that run that anxiety. Okay,
Mhm.
so it is for us, like, even though, like, again, in homeopathy, for each anxiety has a different flavor. So we are trying to find out what is the flavor for this client's anxiety. So with doctors, they just have normal anti-anxiety meds. They do not have the deeper knowledge, and where they are then shipped off. Let's say maybe you need some counseling, or you need to go to a psychologist, or they send them there to do the talk therapy. For us, we need to know what the root cause of that anxiety is. Also, we need to know, when they are anxious, what kind of behavior do they go into.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
because that behavior helps us find the remedies.
Yeah, I think that is so important to mention that for people who may not have experienced homeopathy, that there's a huge difference. When you go to a doctor, you get, like Lakshmi said, you get a prescription medication for your anxiety, as if this anxiety was just one thing, and as if you were just like every other patient that had anxiety. But it's not true. You're not. Everybody's very unique and different. So with homeopathy, we unravel, we try to understand who is that person, what's their story, what's their manifestation, what is so specific, unique about them, and then we match the remedy. So it's such a different approach. um,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
and that is what is so beautiful about homeopathy. Is it is so individualized to where you are and meet you there.
Yes, I always say, this is a medicine of the future, because now you can see there's this impact, this emphasis on personalized medicine, but there's really not much personalized medicine in the conventional sense of it. Homeopathy is the real personalized medicine and has always been, and that's why I think it's really cutting edge from
Yes.
from this point of view. Um, but I do want to ask you though, with homeopathy, I think most of our viewers know, we just get a little medicinal pill or a drop of liquid. And how is that little thing going to help us with our mental, the whole life story, perhaps of a person who's been abused, who had a very difficult childhood, who undergone, some big loss or grief, or has been abused in one way or another, or had many losses in life. And how is that little pill or that little drop of liquid going to help them?
Yeah. Obviously, this is the $1 million question, maybe a billion now. How does homeopathy work, and how does this thing, which doesn't even have the raw material in it, what is it doing that it helps us understand these patterns? And I would say, like, the more you understand about energy, And we know that homeopathy is based on law of similar. So we are finding something that is so similar to you, that it helps you relieve that stress. So if I have to put it very simplistically, like for people just to understand how, what is this similars, it's like, say you're just going on a trip, you're at the airport, and you just meet someone who is so like similar to you, like in what you are, and you just get chatting, and you just, talk to each other, and you feel like, I think I've known you for some time, and the trip just becomes a little bit more easier. You just like kind of vibe with them. You find that we are a match. So homeopathic remedy is something like that. We are finding that the remedy that vibes with you, that matches with you, that helps you uncover something, a deeper layer, so that this layer is released with what it comes. So I look at homeopathic remedies, if I have to put it simplistically, in the energy form, it's a good friend who helps you uncover something deeper, or it helps you release something that you've been holding on to, and it allows you to make that next steps of your journey like a little bit more easier. So I love thinking about it like that. But if there was like a whole explanation of how energetics works, I think quantum physics now is working a lot on what is energy and the science behind energy, and how law of similars work. And we can again use the whole of Newton's, I think, third law: every action has equal and opposite reaction, what they taught in medical school, that the homeopathic remedy imprint is similar to yours, but it's a little bit higher in frequency. So it creates that pressure of you having that similar thing, and then you come back with a counter opposite force, which is a healing reaction and a healing force. And plus the remedy doesn't keep holding that energy for long, because you're just repeating it only as needed, or what your body needs. And then because the energy keeps going away, you're making tracks by progressing, like counter opposing this frequency, and you make that whole healing journey through it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, again, we know that homeopathic remedies are in different frequencies and different vibrations, which help address different layers of, symptom picture. Again, generally it was considered, if it is mind, emotion, and stuff, we go higher. But I have seen in practice sometimes that's not the case. I just meet them with where they are at, because they are complex. And I have seen even 30C work so well for people with mental emotional symptoms. So I just go with what I see at that point, that client susceptibilities and acutes. Like people, I think in old school were thought you're doing 6C, 30C, but we go like 200, 1M, sometimes 10M, depending on how fast that acute came and how fast we wanted to move through. So that is something for me. I don't have hard set rules on how I'm going to select potency. And that's where, through practice and time and taking so many homeopathic remedies, I go with what I get the feel is and select that potency. And I would say energetics are something, for people, it is an experiential process. So how much ever I say this is what's going to happen, or this is how it's going to be, unless you take it, you're never going to know what the experience of that is.
Mm-hmm.
And there
Yeah.
are still clients who get relief, but they're like, I don't know how this happened and what it is about. But uh, like personally for me, when I've had that 10M or the things, and even that one dose, like you can feel the energetic shifts that happen in the body. But it all comes with how much awareness that we have of our own energies in the body. But most people look at that as a easing of the presenting problem or the presenting symptom, and they feel like, I feel relief, and that's how they experience the remedy.
Yes, yes. It's just that sense of, oh, this is just gone. That depression suddenly just lifted. And it's so wonderful, such a wonderful feeling.
That's
I
right.
just want to emphasize something because as you talk how this works, and there is many different theories right now, and I think the new science, and we've been talking about it on our podcast as well. For you guys, you want to come back and listen to our previous episodes, we do talk about it a lot. But it's important. So there is new science that is actually helping us understand homeopathy. But I want to say that important thing to remember is that homeopathy doesn't heal people. It's the personal, the body and the mind that actually heal, and they just getting to be stimulated by the homeopathic remedies. And the key is to find the right stimulant, that right remedy that will stimulate and help the body to actually raise its natural defenses and its healing powers. Because as we know, can heal us. We heal from the inside. Our body heals, and it has to have the right conditions to do that. So I think that's very important to remember that. And I think that that's the true uniqueness of homeopathy, that it honors the power of the body to heal, and it stimulates it in just the right way. Very good. But I do want to, so I just started talking about healing, but my next question was actually about, in your view, in your experience, what is healing from the point of view of homeopathy? And how do we know if we start to take remedies, if we go to a homeopath and they prescribe us a little pill, how do we know that we actually are on the path of healing? Even, perhaps we don't experience like a miraculous healing of everything, but is there a way to actually know that this is the right way, that this is the right remedy?
Yeah. So again, if I have to separate the physical ones always will have reduction in intensity of symptoms. Okay, and if it is been something deeper, like pathological, like if they have come with you with kidney stones or fibroids and things like that, when they do a rescan with fibroids, you pretty much know that the periods are not that heavier anymore. It gets a bit more easier, it gets lighter, and then when they do the scans again, you see that there is reduction in fibroid size. So we are constantly looking at and taking help of normal medicine, because they are the people who can do these assessments and tests. So we're looking at the reports to see that all these parameters are met. If they are only looking for the physical way of, like, if this has been helped. But along with that, most of the women I have seen, like, who are coming with fibroids, there is a lot of emotional things too that is happening. There is a lot of frustration, irritation, anger, sadness, and they go through this whole yo-yo of emotions. So then they also see that emotionally they feel a lot more stable. So even if a similar kind of stressor comes from their environment, be it related to, relationships or job or anything, they feel a lot more centered when they are on how they handle those emotions. So previously, if they would have been like through this whole gamut of frustration, irritation, crying, anger, and all those things, now they are able to process that differently, and they are able to make more centered logical decisions. And that's what we hear from the clients. So yes, it does have impact on the physical, but along with that, they have had other emotional triggers as well. So they see that they're getting better in both these places. And even if it is just an emotional thing that they have coming to us for, one thing is, yes, they feel that big relief, they feel a lot lighter, they don't feel heavier with all these emotions, because that's one thing they feel. They just feel like, they're just dragging themselves and they're like so heavy, and their energy is low. They actually first see that their energy picks up, they feel a lot lighter, they feel a lot more peaceful. And then what happens is, they have become aware of their patterns. They become aware, like, why is this happening, and how are these triggers coming in, my life. So there is awareness that comes in. And secondly, there is a release of all these emotions that they were hanging on to or holding on to, because of which then they feel peaceful, lighter, energetic. And then the last part is about creating new behaviors. So till I feel personally, till you create a new behavior for that similar stressor, like, the healing journey is not complete, because you will be in those stressors like all the time. But you come to a place where that doesn't matter anymore, because you've just learned something deeper about you, that you can handle it differently. You don't need to handle it from a place of, the same worry or sadness or things like that. And they come, I feel they go back, like, within knowing their actual true power and how much more stronger they are. and how they can get it done. So that is what is, I feel, like a completion of the emotional thing, where they are having that new behaviors, they are created that new behaviors. Then I know that, okay, they are in that journey where it's pretty much coming to a completion of that layer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very empowering, isn't it? Because
Yes,
we can actually create different patterns, different behaviors, as
that's correct.
homeopathy is just helping to start that out. So I know that you're also interested in other approaches to healing trauma, like NLP. And can you talk about how those other approaches, additional approaches to healing trauma, can actually be supplementing or can be helpful together with homeopathy?
Sure. With NLP, first, in NLP, like when I studied NLP, there are two components. One is the whole linguistic programming and how we use language, either in an empowering way, and also what kind of questions we need to ask to get to that deeper layer of what that person is undergoing. So personally, for me, I do see that like with NLP. And then there is the whole healing part, where they use like timeline therapy or gestalt therapy in NLP. So what I have seen using NLP techniques is my case taking process has changed quite a lot for homeopathy. So I would use deeper questioning techniques as a practitioner, and asking how things are a problem. Because one thing is, if I have to give you an example, they come in for joint pain and you've taken all their symptoms, that they can't walk, this is a pressure, and whatever their sensations are. Once you've done all that, um, I like to ask them, then how is this a problem for you? Because that is what is going to give us something deeper, that is going to give us like how this presenting problem is actually a problem for them. And it would be things like, I can't spend time with my family, I can't spend time with my kids, and where exactly that they are finding that this problem is creating a deeper problem. So this is where NLP comes in and helps for deeper questioning techniques. And also then you also get like an idea of, I like to see that how many emotions are actually unprocessed in this. And using these techniques, if I'm using that along with homeopathy, I feel that I move through the layers a little bit more faster. And there is the realization of patterns a lot more quicker. So that's what I find by using NLP and homeopathy. Um,
Hello there. Hi, this is Monica. Can you hear me?
yes, I can. I just thought you I lost you for a moment.
I'm so sorry. Yes, wonderful. Okay, so let's come back to that. So this is great. I just really love that you combine all those approaches and really helping your clients in more, holistic way. And so, can you talk a little bit about how you actually helped your clients? Are there any case studies or any examples that you could? Um,
Yes, I can share like a one is a very simple case where we look at where the whole thing was just about the body. And this was a 47-year-old male client who came in seeking help for continuous migraine headaches. He was having for 6 weeks. And he said when the headache first started, he felt like a lot of weakness and numbness, and he felt like he couldn't walk anymore. And he went straight to the GP, who gave him some Panadol. And the symptoms that he experienced with the headache were a lot of heaviness on the left side of the head. It was aggravated, bending down as if something's happening. And then he said his visions became like a little bit of problem. There was eye watering with that headache, and it was aggravated seeing the sun. It was better by pressure and tight bandaging. So that is what he said. And see, this is where the homeopathic thing comes a little bit into thing, and we have to ask them more. And then we ask them like, hey, like this has happened. What was happening right around that time or before that? And that's where he said that 2 weeks prior to that, like he had gone in for his surgery of changing his batteries for his ICD device. So ICD is an implantable cardioverter defibrillator, which he had in place for sinus arrhythmia, and he's had that in place for nearly 6 or 7 years, and it was time to change the batteries of that. So he had just gone in for a surgery to change that. Okay, so then I'm then looking, okay, even this though this is 6 weeks, then this is more of an acute thing. And I didn't get a feeling that and I did question him, how was childhood, how was this? And yes, going back 10, 15 years, he's already got a cardiac stent. So knowing that there is all these hard things, and this is where also as a practitioner, we need to be very clear what the client has come into us for. Okay, so and I did let the client know, I'm just going to take this and just look at this picture, give you a prescription remedy for that, and let's look at it. If it doesn't move or change, then we are going to look at it deeper. I prescribed gelsemium in let me look in in a 30C potency, and I told him take it a couple of times a day, 2 times a day, let me know in 2 weeks. And he said, my symptoms have already gone. Checked again in 4 weeks. He said, nah, no more. And he still gets his family members for treatment 6-7 months on, and he's never had a return of symptoms. And gelsemium again has all these heaviness and this weakness, this tiredness, and it's a great heart remedy with all these vision things. And that was the only thing that because of which this remedy was picked up. And I didn't have to go and investigate all the emotional trauma layer and other layers for this. And I'm like, it's straight, it's a thing. And plus the response is that. So we know from the response what is happening. So this was like a simple thing, something with the surgery or something happened there which triggered these symptoms. And we just helped him deal with it. And all he was doing was having Panadol, and that wasn't also relieving his symptoms. It would still be like a 6 out of 10 in intensity even after a Panadol. um, and uh, and homeopathic remedies, yes, it can be this rapid when we are able to get that quick match and we know it's an acute. So I would say for acutes, the healing needs to be rapid. We are not going in for long-winded thing. And sometimes, yes, there is an acute on chronic picture, but still the acute needs to be handled quicker. Then we can work with the chronic layer of what's happening. So this was one of the cases which was so simple. It was just something as an acute trauma. But then now I have this beautiful case of a young male in the 20s, in the early 20s, and actually came in for the problem of erectile dysfunction. So he came in and he said this has been a problem for the past 5 years. And looking at like his age, and I'm like, okay, then if it was past 5 years, he would be in his teens when this started happening. And he couldn't figure out like why this was happening. Yes, he had finished VCE. It was a stressful time of looking at what he wants to do after VCE and how life would be. And what he said was he cannot get an erection, and he has to be in the right mood. He had gone and seen the doctors. He had gone and had all the assessments, all the tests. Everything was done. And he said sometimes he couldn't even sustain the erection. He had already been on a lot of prescription medication of Viagra, but taking too much Viagra has now starting to give him side effects of severe headaches. So he wanted to come off that and find out like what this is. And again, being in practice for such a long time, you know that, and the doctors couldn't find anything wrong. Okay, they were like, the blood flow is good, they've done all these other tests, they've done everything, and they didn't find anything wrong why he should have this problem. They didn't have any clues why it is happening. So then after that, they said they might do some other invasive kind of testing, and then he didn't want to do that. And he's like,
Mhm.
can you
Yeah.
do anything about this? And this is what his initial thing was. We let the client talk about what they are in for, and this is where like the questioning comes in as a practitioner, and then we ask them more about like what was happening around that time. And he did say about like he was working as an apprentice at that time. It was a very, male dominated place, him being male too, but he didn't find things too comfortable. He had a girlfriend prior to that, but he didn't have any of those issues. But when this was happening, he was also drinking a lot. And then he felt that maybe was it due to drinking, so he stopped drinking. And yeah, and then we did go through all the other questioning about, I like to ask them deeper, like when they have these things like, is this anything more emotional, and he is being male wanting a relationship only with a female. And he was like yes, and there was no confusion there. He was pretty okay with all those things there. And also like we ask about like, things like masturbation, how much, and all those things were like pretty okay, that nothing was excessive. Yeah, because we are looking for the dopamine balance and what's happening. Everything was good. And this is where then the childhood history comes into place, where I asked him to speak about his childhood, and he said that his father passed away when he was just 3 years old. Okay, and then his mom didn't remarry at all, and he's never had a male figure all through life. Okay, and he's always then felt comfortable around women, and being in men energy feels too much for him. So when he went for work as an apprentice and everything, he couldn't handle the male energy. And there was only one time in high school he got into like a little bit of altercation or fight with one of the other guys, and he felt that was so much that he was bawling his eyes out, crying. And he always felt comfortable around women. And in his blood test there was only one thing that showed that he had a little bit of low testosterone as well. So going into this, so this is where like understanding a little bit like about what is happening through things. And he actually had so much fear of being a male. He was scared of being who he truly is. Okay, he was worried about this whole having to deal with this male energy. And he did say, I struggle and I have to really try to be masculine. So um so knowing that, um he found it like, that's why being in that environment, also being with a lot of men, everything, he kind of was so worried like of even being with them, with male in that environment, like having that lot of fear. And again, like these are the impressions also I had wrote, like thought about when this client walked in. Absolutely beautiful, and that's what the word that came, such a pretty looking young man. And that was the first thing, like even before knowing the case, that's what we thought, because we don't think about men as pretty looking men. We think like, oh, they are like, like a man, masculine. And that was my reflection. And then I'm sitting and I got all this case, and this is what his actual struggle was, is being fully masculine, being thing. And then now, so whatever the trigger was, like he couldn't point that out, he couldn't think, but it just happened through that. And then the whole lockdown happened, and then he's having this super anxiety, being on so much Viagra. None of that is helping. And to have any kind of sexual experience has become such a problem. So working through the case and the impressions, and like the energy, this is where like it makes a difference. When the client is sitting, we are like tapping into all that, like as a practitioner. And how gentle he was, like how gentle as a person, that I prescribed him pulsatilla in a 200C. And I did give him, because his blood reports had low testosterone, I just gave a 30C balancing of testosterone couple of times a week. That's all I did. He came back in 3 weeks, and he said that within 3 weeks that he started feeling so much more confident about himself, less anxious, deeper connection, and all these changes had happened. He had started going to the gym, working out, taken up a job, because he had even stopped working, so he took up a job again. And he was having lesser problems, just leaning in to being intimate, and he had taken Viagra only about 3 times. Okay, so from having to constantly take it to 3 times in that whole of 3 weeks or 4 weeks, that was a big thing. And plus he had made all these changes, and I could see, like, he had somewhere, like, there was strength coming in, and he's becoming like stronger and stronger. And in the next appointment when he came, he said that he's had like maybe like the Viagra maybe like once, and he took only like half a tablet of it. He didn't even have to get like the whole thing. And he's still going on, and he started tutoring as well, kids. So he's made those changes where he was just like at home not doing anything and stuff. He felt motivated to go to the gym, so all those things still continued. And then there were only like a little bit, he said that when the thing is starting, like they are having to get intimate, that's when the anxiety hits him like a little bit, where he feels a little bit shaky. But otherwise he goes okay with the rest of the things, and he's super comfortable with everything else as that's happening. And this is where I would say that I used like NLP technique to help him in that moment to visualize like what that anxiety felt like, and clear the modalities, like the submodalities around that, and move that like a little bit. And then when he came next time, he's not anxious anymore with the starting of this problem. Okay. And only thing he felt that everything's going good, but sometimes when everything goes good, there's a little bit of like inner voice that's saying, oh, is this all going to be good? That was the last nagging bit that he was still dealing with. But otherwise everything else, he didn't have to take anything, didn't have to do any of these Viagra or other stuff. Um, uh, but and I did speak about, let's start reducing remedies, and he's like, no, I think I still need them, because sometimes people have that this remedy is helping me so much that they are like, I'd rather just have this, it's doing something. So yes, and we did speak about like, yes, you're going good, but we can look at tapering the remedy doses. So that's where we are at now, looking at like how often, like he was taking testosterone a couple of times a week. So if we can start reducing that, and maybe we might do one more blood work to see how his levels have gone, and if they've all come up, and how things are in that, and see if this behavioral change has continued. So that's where we are at. And yes, considering his age, considering all that, I could have looked for other homeopathic remedies that has got this as a remedy, like all these problem shows erectile dysfunction, this has got all these things, and I didn't go for any of that. Only because knowing that this is more like an energetic, like a trauma thing, not knowing who he is, not finding his place, like, and being comfortable to harness or manage his masculine energy. So that's where the treatment was different in this case, compared to like if I had got someone who was in their late 40s or 50s, then yes, I would have looked for remedies that just looked at erectile dysfunction, because there is poor blood flow and things, to improve all those things and look at all those remedies. Yeah.
Yes, you have to know the person who comes with the diagnosis. It's not the same
Correct.
diagnosis. Everybody's very unique. And it's so interesting, pulsatilla is thought of sort of this feminine remedy, right? That it's usually supposed to be prescribed for women or girls. And but yeah, they actually help your patient to become more masculine, and
That's
which is so
right. Yes.
beautiful.
Yes, because there was too much leaning in on this feminine, and so much on that. And also in pulsatilla they do have that dread of, it says opposite sex. For him, in case it is like his own sex people, there was this lot of worry, and he didn't want to work in that environment or that thing, and it
Mhm.
put his anxiety and stress up so much in that. And that's where, like, as a practitioner, we are also leaning in, looking at how they are and how gentle the whole client was in the whole
Yes.
in initial case taking. It was just so beautiful, like the energy of that, so nurturing. And that's where I did pick up, like, pulsatilla, and also having this dread and all those things, and being so gentle, being so yielding, being that way. That is what actually put me to pulsatilla. And this is where, as practitioners, we do have that little bit of intuitive hat on
Yes.
with when we are prescribing. And I came to that remedy, and then I was like, okay, let's just balance the testosterone as well with that. um, and we know, like, from the response, and I'm like, I'm just going to do this and see what happens. And when you see such a big growth, and that is where we see, like, creating new behaviors. And this client had moved through quite a lot of those steps emotionally, and changed that, and doing exercise, doing gym, and also taking up a job which he hadn't for the last year. So
Mhm. Yes.
this is where we know that the remedy is moving through quite a lot.
Yes, yes, we're looking at the whole life and everything that's happening in the life, and the quality of life and how a person can express themselves and how they can actually function. It's not just looking at whether they have less anxiety or they can sleep better. It's a really much bigger picture, which is so
That's
beautiful.
right.
It's really bringing us to what healing is. Healing is not about just getting rid of your headache. It's actually about becoming a happier, more well-adjusted, more person who actually can contribute better, who can live a full life and not be, just limited to struggling with, some
Yes,
symptoms and
yes.
whether mental or physical.
And I think that's what I was speaking about, like, the great question that I like to ask is, with these symptoms, how is it a problem for you? Because you
Yes.
need to ask,
Mhm.
and you need to go somewhere deeper, because this is what shows you the impact it's having in your life and in the areas that you're looking, that you would look for. Like, many of the clients would, even though if their symptoms are better, but if they have not made changes in these other areas, they are not going to tell, they are pretty much going to say that, yes, I've had some reduction, but I'm not sure if I'm good or not good, because they're actually looking for these
Mhm.
behavioral changes as well in
Yes.
areas of life.
Right. Because life is not just about not having a headache. It's about living a full, fulfilling life with contribution and, a sense of
Correct.
fulfillment.
That's
Beautiful.
correct.
Well, is there something that you would like to leave our guests with, something about homeopathy that you think is really important for us all to know?
Again, with guests, it depends where they are at in their healing journey. um, I would, if they are, like, right at the beginning, the best place to start is using remedies for acutes, because you see faster responses and improvements, which is going to give you the confidence of continuing or wanting to continue using this. And then you will slowly go into learning more remedies, because that's the only way you can do that, because the more you use a remedy, you learn more about it through time. So it is about learning the materia medica knowledge, of just, like, reading through them. Like, it's like a night reading, like, what does this remedy do? Or you can even have a meditative connection with them. You can meditate on the remedy, feel where they are at. And in complex cases, um, I would strongly recommend that you have, like, another homeopath or someone who works with you through this journey, only because it keeps you on track. So, knowing that even as homeopaths, we like to do all the things you think we have, but there are other instances we are like, okay, somebody else needs to just hold me to this, because there is so much else that's happening in life. So, even for practitioners who are struggling to stuff, it's actually nice to have someone else walk you through whatever it is that you're wanting to journey through. so that they have that little bit of that drone's eye view about everything that's happening. Because when we are in the problem, we are too much entangled with it that we are not able to see that, full picture. And
Mhm.
having a practitioner or someone else that you're working with helps you have that, helps you have that extra picture, rather than just like this, kind of 1D kind of level. And we know that now with drones, like how much more information we have, higher perspective. And having a practitioner is something like that. Um, is
Yeah.
is someone who looks at quite a lot more things. And sometimes when we are looking at our case ourselves, we feel like, oh, I think that's important, oh, I think that's important, oh, I think I'm going to do this. And it can be a bit too confusing because you want to take
Yes.
every aspect, and you've got someone else who's able to actually see that, what is important, for this case, and what am I going to consider, and what are just like the other kind of symptoms that comes through this, and which would automatically go off as soon as we heal the person within.
Yeah, I love that analogy with the drone, is actually the ability to see that big picture. And this is why we do need homeopaths. We do need a person to help us out instead of just kind of Googling and trying to find a remedy for that could potentially help us. It's very important to have that connection with another person who can take an objective view. And that's how homeopaths are trained, right? To step back and actually have the objective view without judgment, without um, um,
That's right.
presumptions, and just really help you understand yourself better from a very objective and bigger picture. Well, beautiful. Well, this was such a fun conversation. I've learned so much from you, Lakshmi, and I love your approach, and how broad you take it, and it just really made me feel so happy to know that there are people like you out there who are helping us live better lives and not just trying to struggle through daily aches and pains, but actually become better people as and happier and more fulfilled. So this was my message from this interview. Well, and I want to thank you so
That,
much for coming today.
thank
And
you so much. Thank
Mhm.
you.
And thank you everybody for watching. Like Lakshmi said at the beginning, it's so wonderful that people are tuning in and listening and trying to learn more about homeopathy and other approaches to healing, because we really need it. We know that currently conventional medicine is really not helping people that much in terms of chronic situation, chronic emotional as well as physical and psychological problems. So really, we have to look outside, and homeopathy is a wonderful way to start and to get your life to be much more fulfilled and happy. Well, thank you again, everybody. Thank you, Lakshmi. Be well, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Okay,
Thank
bye
you.
bye.
Bye.